G'day, my name's Josh Nyland. We're here at Fish Butchery Waterloo, the newest of the fish butcheries. Fish Butchery, the book, is finally a culmination of experiences, techniques and practices now locked in between two covers. We've gone and cut it into three separate stages. So the first one being catch, where we try to demonstrate and understand what makes a fish great from point of capture. Then on to the next stage, which is the cut. Now the cut can be seen traditionally as being the way we take a fillet off the bone, but trying to re-establish what that new framework looks like. The third part of the book is craft, looking at fish as a craft, the craftsmanship that you need to not only learn, but apply and become a practice towards then how you handle fish. The second a knife goes into a fish, you've actioned the whole fish. So this book really does demonstrate how you can put into practice a great plan for one single fish. During the making of Fish Butchery, I had the great privilege of going out on the water. I've never been out on the water for a book that we've made, but we went out with a fisherman called Luke Beschultz. We managed to catch ourselves a wild kingfish, which is what I've got here right now. The parts of the process that we wanted to really summarise is what happens at point of capture and then through to it arriving in your fry pan at home. Once the fish takes the bait and it jumps on, it wants to get as far away from you as humanly possible. In doing so, then it generates a whole lot of lactic acid within the muscle and eventually runs out of oxygen, so it can't sustain the fight, and up we bring the fish. Once it comes up on board, best practice says that we spike the fish, the ikijime method, which has been practiced in Japan for centuries, and you can see it's marked here on this fish here. And in the book as well, there's reference to that process getting done. Once the fish is spiked, the fish also gets cut at the gills. Once the gills are cut, then the fish can bleed properly. So we're removing the blood from the fish, and then it goes into an ice slurry. Spiking an ice slurry gets the temperature down in the fish, but also removes the lactic acid, giving you a product which has a significantly greater opportunity of lasting longer, and also the condition of the flesh and the texture is going to be outstanding. Once the fish comes out of ice slurry, it's critical that the fish is kept as close to 0 degrees Celsius as possible, from point of capture right through to there where it lands in the marketplace. Traditionally, once this fish arrives at market, it goes onto the market floor, gets sold to a wholesaler or to those that want to purchase the whole fish. Usually it goes back then to a station where the fish is first scaled. And when you scale a fish, usually it's quite a dramatic process where scales go everywhere. And then with all of that going everywhere, then a hose comes out and we wash away all the scales so that we start with a cleaner product. It's then gutted through the base of the fish, and then the gills are removed with the organs and then washed again. After that, fillets are taken off, dipped in water in front, and then popped onto a tray of ice. That basically lends itself to a whole list of problems. Firstly, the theory of osmosis, where fresh water is applied to a saltwater product, and that fresh water is trying to make the salt less salty. And what happens is that fresh water starts to fill the cells of the fish up, and eventually it gets to breaking point where the cells rupture and bust, and those cells then have collapsed, giving you a compromised flesh, which is mushy, and it retains the moisture that you've added. That moisture then is harboured within the flesh and holding the opportunity for bacteria to grow. To me, a lot of the thinking around fish butchery was, if you were to walk into a meat butchery, and never have I ever seen somebody break down an animal and then give it a little wash with a hose and then cut a steak and then dip it in water and then pop it onto a tray of ice, which is currently how we work with fish. We've got this ticking time bomb that, because it's been so affected by the use of water, in differences in temperature, we've got something that really must be used right now. Starting with the most pristine product is critical for you to be able to execute the multitude of opportunities that exist within one fish. So going through the quality points of a fish, always making sure that you've got a full armour of scales that's unaffected by any abrasions or punctures. Checking the gills that were nice and rosy and beautiful and red. Looking at the clarity of the eyes and the fact that they're sitting up above the head and not sunken in. The smell. should smell like the ocean that it came from. I always like to have a look at the fins of the fish and making sure that the membrane or the webbing that sits between each fin is intact. The more damage that's been done, then it means usually that the fish is beaten around in a tub for a little too long. As well, there should be a slight slime or mucus on the outside of the fish. And I suppose this is something that the fish generates to protect itself from pathogens in the water. And to see a fish at the very beginning with a dry condition on the outside is something that you want to avoid completely. From this point here, this is where we receive it. And what I've got here then is a fish that has been matured now for just over a week. And something now that may see another few days in the cool room. I think what got misconstrued in the first book was really this idea that all fish can be aged and fresh is best can be thrown out the window. What needs to be said here is some fish have greater moments than others on specific days. And for us to understand and articulate what those days look like, I think is really important. And as a retailer, it means that we don't have to push the button on day one and take these fillets off straight away. Because once the fillet is off the bone, time starts ticking. And you've got a very short window of time where the fish is being subject to the light and to the oxygen, and you then begin to start to compromise the overarching taste, but as well the texture of the fish. By knowing just these few tips or that little insight into the world of fish, this will level up your game completely and change the way that you see fish.